In this course, you'll learn how to design professional social media templates with Figma. Whether it's Facebook posts, Instagram stories, or seamless Instagram carousel posts, Figma can handle it all. The best part, these will also be aligned with brand specifications. We'll be designing for a dummy real estate brand called Ascent Realty, and I'll show you exactly how to integrate the brand colors, typography, and overall style into these social media templates. Hey everyone, I'm Adi, and this course will teach you the how and why behind this design project. The how refers to the technical side of using Figma, and the why refers to the decisions we'll be making to make sure these templates are in line with the brand we're designing for. But before we get into all that, why are social media templates important? Simple answer: to ensure consistency between your posts, which helps build a recognizable brand identity. Also, templates save you time, so you can focus on creating great content without starting from scratch each time. Plus, they maintain that professional look that's very important for a business. So whether you're posting daily or just special promotions, having a set of well-designed templates will improve your social media strategy. With that said, let's get started with the course. This video is brought to you by Envato, the unlimited creative subscription. Find and download authentic graphics, templates, photos, and fonts. Follow the link in the description and start creating now. So you might be asking why you should use Figma to design social media templates. Isn't Canva or some other software better? Well, this is not a Figma versus Canva video, but let me give you a few very good reasons why you might consider using Figma. And the first one is that Figma is free. It's a very cost-effective solution, and sure, Figma does have a paid plan, but even the free plan offers a lot of stuff, so you can get started right away free of charge. Figma is also cross-platform. It works directly in your browser, regardless of the operating system. Another reason is the gentle learning curve. As a beginner, you'll have a super easy time learning Figma because it's very, very intuitive. And if you need help, you will find tons of training videos here on the Envato Tuts Plus YouTube channel that will get you up and running in no time. Figma also offers some pretty amazing tools. It includes everything you need from basic shapes to more advanced AI tools, like this AI background remover, which is free to use at the time of this recording. Also, Figma can export your work to PDF, which might come in very handy on platforms like LinkedIn, which displays PDF files in a really cool carousel format. Finally, readily available templates. If you don't fancy creating your own templates, there are plenty of them available for download. A great source for templates is Figma Community, where you can find both free and paid ones. And I can also recommend Envato. This is a fantastic resource, not just for social media templates, but for a host of other digital assets. Now, if you want to create your own templates, there are a few key design principles I recommend you would follow. So let's talk about those next. And I'm going to go over these very quickly because we'll be exploring them in more detail as we get to the practical projects. The first principle is consistency. You need to maintain the same design style across your posts, and this will help with brand recognition. And there are a few ways you can do that. One of them is to use the same color scheme. Another principle is white space. And white space refers to the empty space around objects. It doesn't have to be white, but it does have to be there to improve the readability, right? Your designs need to breathe. You must resist the urge to fill all the available space with information. On number 3, we have hierarchy. Visual hierarchy is very important because it helps guide the user's attention to the right places. It allows them to scan the information a lot easier. To give you an example, if you were to make all the text elements in your design the exact same size, then people won't be able to immediately tell what is the title, the subtitle, and the body text. It's going to be very, very confusing. And the last principle is accessibility. You need to make sure the content you're designing is usable by everyone, including people with disabilities. And among other things, this involves the use of proper contrast between the text and the background. Now, with these design principles in mind, we are ready to design our social media templates. But one question remains: what size should my template be? You know, design adventures can be tricky, especially when you're on the hunt for device mockups, icons, or other digital assets. If you're looking for a place where you can find this stuff really easy, I recommend Envato. Recently, I was working on a website design, and this feature section needed to show an image of the client's app. And it's a Mac app, so I wanted to present it in a special, meaningful way. So I found this Apple Pro Display mockup on Envato. After importing it to Figma, I changed the image, then copied the whole thing in my project, adjusted the size and positioning, and I was done. Very simple, very fast. So check out Envato for all sorts of digital assets. You need one subscription for unlimited downloads. For more info, check out the links in the video description. And that depends entirely on the platform you're designing for. Facebook, Instagram, X all have different size requirements for their images. Now, to give you a good resource for this, I came across this cheat sheet for the 2024 social media image sizes. And this is a great article that gives you all the sizes for all the social media platforms. So if we're interested in the Instagram ones, for example, they give you a nice visual here. So you can see exactly what size you need to use for, reels, stories, ads, and so on and so forth. And you can reference this article if you are just getting started and are confused about what size your templates should be. Mind you, if you're watching this in the future, then this information might be outdated, but at the time of this recording, this is spot on. You'll find a link to this article, to the cheat sheet, down in the video description, so go ahead and check that out. Now, for the rest of this course, we'll be designing 3 social media templates for the same real estate agency. So we'll create a Facebook post, an Instagram story, and an Instagram carousel post. That last one is going to be very interesting, so stick around. But for now, let's get started with the first one, which is the Facebook post. As I mentioned earlier in the video, we are designing these social media templates for a dummy real estate brand called Ascent Realty. And here I have all the brand assets. We have the logo suite, where we can see the various versions of the logo. We have a full logo, and then we just have the symbol in some color combinations. And by the way, I have all of these logo versions set up as components, so it's going to be really easy for us to use. And then we have the color palette, which uses a primary, this lavender, and then this amber as the secondary, and the charcoal as our gray color, which we'll mainly use for text. Moving on, we have the typography section. We're using 3 typefaces for this. Rubik, that's the main one. Open Sans, we'll mostly use this for body text, and Shadows into Light. We'll be using this just as an accent piece, really, every now and then. I also made a type scale. It's based on a 20 pixel base value with a 1.25 scale, which gives us these font sizes that will be used throughout this design. And apart from these, we also have some patterns, which are based on the logo design, and some graphic elements, which are also based on the logo design that we'll be using throughout this design project. Now, let's open up the Facebook post template page where I have a wireframe of the template that we need to design. So this is a template for a new listing. Whenever the agency wants to show off a new property, they can use this template to do that on social media. So we have the logo, a main title, some key information about the property, like the number of bedrooms, bathroom, and square footage, the price, the address, and some call to action. That's currently schedule a tour, and it gives us a phone number. And right here, we have a big listing image. Now, right beside this, I created a new frame that's 1200 by 630. This is the proper size for a Facebook post. And here's a quick note here. If you're using the frame tool in Figma, you press F and you go to the sidebar, you click social media. That will give you some presets for the most popular social media sizes. So you can see here the Facebook post that we're using. We have Instagram stories, dribble shots, and a few others. It's not a full list, but it's something that you can get started on. Also, I forgot to mention this, based on the color palette, I created some variables for all the colors and their variations. So all of these range from 50 to 900. And this is going to make it much easier for us to pick the right colors in our design. All right, so let's design this Facebook post template. And we'll start with the image, because that's the biggest thing in the template. It's the element that stands out the most. And I've prepared some assets here. These are some icons that I got from an icon set available on Envato. You'll find links down below. And this is also an image that I got from Envato. So let's go ahead and drag our image in Figma. Currently, this is very, very big. So let's actually resize it. Let's place it inside that new frame. And let's place it to the right side. Something like this. Now, currently, this is a bit too big, and I want to only show kind of a portion of the image. But I also want to design this so it matches the brand identity, right? So let's go back to the brand assets, and let's go to these graphic elements and pick something from here that would work pretty well. So let's grab this shape, and let's paste it in here. I'm just going to position it, roughly like this. And I'm just going to make it bigger and maybe even bigger. Let's make it about this big. So now what I'll do is I'm going to bring the image to the top. I'm going to group these two, and I'm going to choose the vector, right click, and use that as a mask. And that will mask the image exactly to the shape of the vector. Now let's also add a little bit of color to this. Let's add like a border that goes around the image, and that's going to add a little bit more separation between the image and the rest of the page. So we'll select the vector, we'll duplicate it, and we'll remove the mask from this bit. And let's go ahead and add a stroke. And for the color, let's choose the lavender, which is our primary, and we'll go with like 200. and a 32 pixel size. All right, so the structure here is pretty simple. We have the image, and then we have the vector mask, and then we have this other vector, which is an exact copy of this one, except we added this border. So now it looks like this. And using masks here is very important because it allows other users to easily change the image, right? They can click on the image here and they can, move it right to left. They can make it bigger. Let's say, they want to make it something like this. They can easily do that. So let's keep it to about here and maybe make it a little bit bigger. Whenever you're creating templates like this that are meant to be reused, it's really important to find or to organize your template in such a way that it's very easy to use later on. And masks, is a great option for that. And in Figma, if you want to change this image to something else, you basically just double click, you select swap, upload new, and you can, insert a new image there, which is really cool. All right, let's start bringing in some of the other elements here. Let's bring these in, all of them. I'm gonna paste them in. And let's start by setting the typeface for all of these. Okay, let me just ungroup everything so I have individual access to them. So this one, we'll be using Rubik, uppercase, and we'll use 49 pixels. And if you're wondering why 49 pixels, well, it's just one of the values from our type scale. It's this one right here, 49 pixels. And, it matches the available space in our design. Okay, so let's keep this here for now. And let's also change the line height to 120%. And for now, we'll change the fill color to charcoal 500, which is the base variant. Let's select the other elements. Let's also change their fill color to charcoal 500. And we're actually gonna change these to open sans, which is our secondary typeface. We'll change the line height to 140%. And let's change their size to 31 pixels. It might look a little bit big here on the screen, but you got to think about where this template or this image will be shown. And, this is for Facebook. And a lot of people, most people actually browse Facebook on their phones. So this will be displayed on their phones. And it's going to be, about this big, I would say, or maybe even smaller. So you got to make that text readable. Therefore, we're going to use a bigger font size. This one is a list. Let's actually break it up because I don't need a list here. I need these to be individual items like so. And let's kind of figure out where we're going to place these items just so the whole composition is balanced. So the title is going to go here because we have this kind of empty space for it, but it's probably going to be something like this. And then underneath, I'm going to have the key information. So these three features plus, the price. And then the address, let's place this over the image somewhere around here. And then the call to action, I believe also over the image. So around here somewhere. Now let's see about this title because I want that to kind of stand out a bit more. And the one thing that I'm going to do is actually remove for sale from there, duplicate this, and let's use this secondary or this, accent typeface, which is shadows into light, which looks something like this, but I'll just do a camel case there. And let's use a bigger font size based on our type scale, which is 61 pixels. So that looks pretty good. Okay, let's just bring that over like so. Let's align these to the middle. And let's set the text alignment to middle. Okay. Let's add a little bit of a darker background to that title. So we'll just draw a simple rectangle. And I'm just gonna make it larger like this. Let's bring it under everything, including the image. And I'm going to press Shift R to bring up the rulers. And I've already prepared some rulers here. The horizontal ones sit at 64 pixels from the sides, while the vertical ones sit at 48 pixels from the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to grab these two, Command G or Control G to group them up. And let's just align them to the guides. And I'm going to increase the size of this box so we have equal space on top and bottom. And let's select it. And for fill color, let's use charcoal 500. So now let's select this first text. We'll change the fill color to charcoal 50. And let's select this one, and let's use the our secondary color, which is amber. Again, we'll go with 500, which is like the base version of the color. Okay, so that looks pretty good. This part right here is currently white, but I don't really want to use pure white. So why don't we apply one of the lighter versions of our colors? And let's go with the lavender 50, like so. So it's a very, very light variation of that primary color. I'm going to do one small change here. I'm simply going to move this image up a bit so that the corner of the shape here kind of matches with the bottom of this dark shape. It's just a visual thing, but I think it makes a difference. So let's do that. Great. Let's move on to these characteristics here. So 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2,500 square feet. These will be used in pretty much all the new listings because they refer to essential information. Let's go ahead and use some icons that match, the text here. So for bedrooms, let's use this icon. For bathrooms, we're going to use this one. And for square footage, we're going to use this one. So let's grab all of these. We'll bring them in Figma. Currently, they are super, super big. But let's resize these to 40 pixels. And let's also set their color to charcoal 500. Awesome. Now, let's do some auto layout magic. Select these 3, Shift A, and then select these 3, paste them in, and then let's start grouping them up. So bedrooms, it's going to be this one, Shift A with these 2, make a horizontal frame, align to the middle, add 24 pixel gap between, and let's push the text to the right side. This one, bathroom, let's do the same. And finally this one, great. Let's have these set to hug contents. And let's align them with our guide. And let's set the distance here to be 48 pixels. Now let's see about this price. Automatically this needs to be bigger because I want it to be visible. So let's also give it a border. So we'll do Shift A to create a frame with it. Let's add 40 pixels, padding side to side, 24 pixels, top and bottom. Let's add a stroke, 8 pixels. We'll use, again, charcoal 500. And as for the border radius, we'll use 16 pixels. Finally, let's make this text bigger. And we'll use our main typeface here, 39 pixels, and it's going to be bold. So let's place this right here, and we'll align it with the guides. And, looking at it, I feel that this area here is a little bit overcrowded. And remember one of the design principles that we talked about, the white space, right? We need to let our design breathe. We need to add that empty space around elements. So let's do this. Let's move the image more to the right side, not too much, because, we want to display, or we want to show as much of the image as possible. But I also want to add a little bit more breathing room here. So, about this much looks good to me. And now let's also do this. Let's align these elements with the title, okay? So we'll select these, align everything to the middle, make sure the title is still aligned with the guides, and yeah, already that looks much, much better. Now let's focus our attention on these other two elements, the address and the call to action. First of all, address. Because we're placing this over the image, we need to either make the text a color that will contrast well, or add a background to this. So let's add a background. We'll do Shift A to add this to an auto layout frame, and we'll set the fill color to the charcoal 50. And this is a neutral color, right? I want this neutral color to be used for all of these elements that are not super, super important. Let's do 16 and 16 for the padding, 16 for the border radius, or actually I think we could get away with a smaller one like 8. And then let's add an icon here that symbolizes location. And I have this one here that's from the same icon set as the other icons I've used. So let's bring that in. Let's resize it to 40 pixels. Let's copy it from here. Let's paste it in here. Place it before the text. And let's just change that gap between items to something like 12 pixels. And one thing that I don't necessarily like about this icon is the house inside. I think it complicates the icon a little bit too much. So because this is a vector, I can delete it altogether and just have that simpler, more efficient icon in there. So now Shift R to bring back the guides, and I can simply, move this up and to the right to align it with the guides. And this kind of overlaps the image here. That's no problem. I think it looks pretty good. But I think we could do with a smaller font size. So instead of 31, let's go one step below in our type scale and use 25 pixels. Okay. Now let's actually use 25 for the call to action as well. So the final thing that we need to create to design is basically this call to action, which it says schedule a tour, it gives a phone number, and we still need to display the company logo in there somewhere. That's very, very important. So let's do it here actually. And for that, let's select these two elements, Shift A, let's align them to the left. And let's set a fill color to the Amber 500. I'm doing this because it's a very bright color. It immediately stands out. And of course, it matches my other text here. So let's give this some padding. Let's go with maybe 24. And let's set it to hug contents. Let's set 16 pixels. Rounded corners. Let's make this one bold, and let's align the text to the left. Let's delete that gap between items, and let's set the color of this text to Amber 900. Because we're using Amber 500 here, it only makes sense to use the darker variation of that color for the text. And finally, let's place the logo. And if we go back to the brand assets and we check out the logo suite, I want to use this symbol variation of the logo because we don't have a lot of space to work with. So are we going to use this one on the amber background? Well, no, because we already used the amber background for the call to action text. So let's use the one that has a darker background. So let's grab that from there, paste it in, and I'm just gonna scale this down. And let's get it to about 96 pixels. Let's Shift A these to add auto layout to make sure they are properly aligned. And now let's change the colors here a little bit. For the fill, let's go actually with the charcoal 900. And for the logo, let's go with charcoal 50. So, very neutral. And now let's place the logo over the amber box. For that, we can easily use, a negative spacing, something like -24. That means we need to extend this amber box. We can do that by changing the padding right to a bigger value, something like 48 pixels. Shift R to bring back the guides, and let's just align the content like that. So that is our Facebook post template. Now, because this is a template, you have to make sure that it's going to look good when you or other people will change its contents. So that means if you're going to change some text elements from here, are they going to break the layout or not? So for example, if you're going to change the address, see, this is a problem. It just goes on and on. It goes over the boundaries of my elements. So ideally, I would want this box to expand this way, right? So we can easily do that. We just need to set the alignment to the right side, and the text, we align it to the right. And then we select it, and we go right here to constraints, and we make sure we constrain it to the right side. So now if we change the text, it's constrained to the right side of my page, and it doesn't overflow. We can do the same here. Select this, constrain it to the right. So now if we change this text, does that. And, we can do the same for the others. Just make sure you test with different values and see how it looks like. One other thing that I forgot to do here, let's bold the numbers like so. And, you can go ahead and test some of the other elements to make sure the layout still functions when you change the text values, but I'll leave that up to you. But for now, the Facebook post template for the new listing is ready to go. So that's the first template done. Now, using what we've learned in this lesson, let's go ahead and create the second template, which is for an Instagram story coming up. Now, for our Instagram story template, we're going to create one that's made up of 4 slides. I'm sure you know this, but in an Instagram story, you can add multiple images, multiple videos, and you have little progress bars on the top. And when you tap on the image or the video, it just goes to the next slide. And of course, it automatically plays. But a story like this, an Insta story with multiple slides, allow us to present more information about a certain topic. So these are the wireframes for the 4 slides. And this template is for a property showcase. On the first slide, we're going to have a title and a big picture of the property. On the next 2 slides, we're going to have, again, big pictures and, main features of the property. And on the last one, it's basically a call to action, right? We still have a picture of the property, but The rest is information about the realtor. We're going to have the company logo there. And its purpose is just to give people a way to contact the realtor about what they saw in the other slides of the story. And these are the assets we'll be using. This is an arrow icon that I got from Bootstrap Icons, and these are the images that we'll be using. All are taken from Envato, and this is a picture of the realtor. Great, so let's get started. I've prepared 4 frames here that are 1080 by 1920. So these are in portrait mode, and they are the correct size for an Instagram story. Now, because we're designing this for a brand, and this is a set of templates, we need to use the same style, right? So that means we're going to, of course, use the brand assets. We're going to use the color palette, the typography, and the patterns, but also we're going to be using some or reusing some styles that we used in the first template. Like, for example, this image that's masked by a shape. So let's start there. Let's actually copy this because it's much easier. We'll copy the whole group and we'll paste it in here. And I'm just going to make this bigger, something like that. And I'm just going to change the image here. And I'm going to bring in the house exterior that I want to showcase. So let's bring this down. Let's make it much, much bigger so that it fills up the entire available space, like so. And then I'm going to move it like that. So that looks pretty good. Maybe, just push this down a little bit. Let's actually select the whole group, bring it down like so. And then let's bring the image back up. So that looks pretty good. Now, instead of having a white background here, let's select the frame and let's fill it with charcoal 500. Because I'm going to use that amber color to place the title, which is this one. So let's copy it here. And the amber will stand out a lot better on this darker background. So let's Shift A that. Let's add a fill color, amber 500. Let's add maybe an 8 pixel or a 16 pixel border radius. Let's do 24 pixels for the padding. Let's align everything to the middle. Let's set the text to center align. And let's set the text to Rubik. We'll use 95 as the font size. We'll make this uppercase, 120 line height, and we'll select bold. Great. And let's use as the color, let's use amber 900. Okay, that's great. Now, Shift R is going to bring up some guides. And I've set this guide a little bit lower to 250 pixels because Instagram usually puts stuff up here when on stories, right? So I'm going to leave that space, kind of make it a safe space so nothing gets, obscured by UI elements from Instagram. So let's align that to the middle and align it with the guide. Next, we have 2 other pieces of information here. We have the logo that we need to set. And also right here, I've set 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4. This is just a visual aid. It's a cue to let users know that, hey, there's more on this story, right? So instead of using numbers, we're going to use an arrow. And we're going to place those right here at the bottom. Let's start with the logo. We'll go back to our brand assets. Let's see. We're going to use a variation of this logo. So let's paste that here. But we're not going to use the amber. Instead, let's use our primary color. So that's indigo 500. And the logo itself is going to be indigo 50. Now let's resize this to about 1 60 pixels in height, something like that. So let's place that down. And let me actually match the border radius with the one that I used here on the top. So I use 16. Let's change this to 16 as well. Now let's add that arrow right here. And we need to add it to a background that would work pretty much with every single image. So bring in the arrow. Right now it's super, super tiny. Let's scale that up so that its height is about 32 pixels. And let's ungroup this. And let's Shift A. And let's add 64 pixels lateral padding and 40 pixels top padding. And let's set the width to hug contents. And let's set the fill color to charcoal 900. Let's grab this vector and change its fill color to the amber. So we have a great contrast there. And let's see, we used 16 pixels as border radius. We'll do the same here. And I want this arrow to be a bit longer, right? So let's actually double click. This is a vector, so I can just grab these lines and make that arrow bigger. Maybe not that big, something like that. Okay, so now let's select that. Let's bring it here. And I'm going to select both the logo and the arrow. Shift A to align them to the middle. And because I've set the gap here to auto, the logo stays to the left, the arrow goes to the right. Let's select the arrow container. Control, double click one of the top or bottom sides. Sorry, I meant Alt. To set it to fill container vertically. Let's align that to the middle. And let's actually make the icon here a little bit bigger. So I'm going to use K, right? The scale tool. Let's set this to 24 pixels in height. Maybe a bit more, 28 pixels in height. I want it to be visible, right? Okay, that's a good first slide. Let's move on to the second one. And the second one, very similar to the first, except we have this title here that's a little bit smaller. And we have another type of image. Let's start by changing the fill color to charcoal 500. And let's use one of our other shapes from the brand assets. Let's use this one, for instance. Yeah, we'll paste that in. We'll do Shift H to flip it horizontally. And let's align it here to the top left. And let's scale it till we get to about this point. So let's use this as the mask for our image. Let's bring in the image. We're going to use this interior. Let's scale it, group it up. Let's duplicate this. And we'll use the first one as a mask. Let's, change the position of the image. Of course, we need to make it a bit bigger. And we'll position it something like this. Great. Now let's select the other shape in the background. And let's add a stroke, 32 pixels. And we'll use a variation of the charcoal. So we used 500 here on the background. Let's go with 400 for the border. So it just adds a little bit more separation between the image and the background color. Now, one element that's the same on this slide is the logo and arrow. So we'll copy those over. And then let's add the title. So let's copy that, paste it in, and we're going to create a similar box like we did in the first slide, except not as prominent, right? Not as catchy. So we're going to do Shift A to put this in an auto layout frame. We're going to fill it with, let's use our brand primary color, indigo, and we'll do 50 here. Let's align everything to the middle. And let's set a 48 pixel padding all around. And we'll use 16 pixels as the border radius. Let's select the text, align it to the middle. We're going to change it to Rubik. It's going to be a regular 61 pixels, 120% line height, and we're going to use the indigo 900. We'll set the text here to fill the container, and then I'm going to take this container, align it with the guides, and resize it again, following or aligning it with the guides. So that's our second slide done. Our third one is actually very similar. So let's start by setting that background color. We'll copy everything from the second slide. We'll paste it over. Let's change things up here a little bit. Instead of having these shapes facing the right side, let's flip them around. Let's right-click, flip horizontal. So they kind of mirror each other between the second and the third frames. And the text here is this one. So copy and paste that in. And let's just change the image. And we just uploaded a new image. Now it's simply a matter of changing its position. So we decide which part of the image we want to show. So that's frame or slide number 3 done. For the number 4 slide, let's do something a bit more special. So we have the usual information here. We have the logo. We have a property picture. And then we have a picture of the realtor. So let's start with this. We'll use the same charcoal 500 that we used for the other slides just to, maintain consistency. And if we go back to the brand assets, we have this pattern here that we haven't used. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's copy it. Now let's paste that in. And let's do a simple alignment like so. And we can make this, bigger, smaller. Just make sure you use the scale tool. And I'm just going to align it to the middle, something like that. Maybe even make it a bit bigger. It doesn't have to be perfect or anything. I'm thinking something like this. Yeah, you can play around with this. It's not a big deal. One thing I would like to change though is the selection color. So let's go with charcoal 400. So it's barely visible. It's like a decorative element there. And I'm just gonna lock it in place so it doesn't interfere with any of our other elements. And because we've used this this shape-oriented approach across our design, let's do that here as well. So go back to the brand assets, and let's just grab this shape, and we'll paste it in here. And let's see, we'll do Shift H to flip it horizontally. Okay, let's make this as big as the frame itself, and let's push it down, something like that. And Command D to duplicate it, Shift V to flip it vertically, and then Shift H to create kind of an up and down style here. So we have one top section that's angled and then one bottom section that's also angled. On this top section, we're actually gonna place this image. So this is the main image of the property. So select this, Command D to duplicate, and we're gonna paste in the image. And we're gonna take these, Command G to group, select the middle one, use as mask, select the last one, add a stroke, 32 pixels, charcoal 500. And then it's simply a matter of moving the image so we can see a lot more of the property. So I think something like this should work just fine. Now this part here below, let's make it stand out. And because it's going to display the logo, let's use our primary. So that's 500. And we need to place the logo in here. So let's actually go to Assets. We'll go to Local Assets, Brand Assets. And we're going to grab this one, this logo here, which works well on a colored background. And let's scale this down. So it's 160 in height. Let's also bring in this text here. Let's set family to open sans. We'll set it to italic. Size is going to be 31, 140% line height. And we'll set the fill to indigo 200. So it's a little bit more washed out. Now select the logo, this text, Shift A to add auto layout. Let's align everything with the guides, and let's set an 80 pixel gap between these two, and then let's just align everything with the guides once again, like that. Now that's starting to look good. But we also need to add a picture of Jane Smith, which in our case is the realtor. So let's bring in Jane Smith, which is this one. But I don't want to see the background here. I just want a picture of the person. So here's something that we can do in Figma at the time of this recording. This is an AI feature that's still in beta. I can click this and go remove background. And Figma is going to analyze the image, and in a few moments, it's going to cut out the person from the background. It's really, really cool. And it actually works really, really well. How cool is that? And this added, like a fill to my original image. So this is the original image, and this is the portion that was cut out. And what I can do here is set this to crop, so I can, crop this around so it's easier for me to work with. So now I can bring this in, and I can resize it. And I'm going to place my subject, something like this. That looks pretty good. And just as a final touch, I'm going to add some shadow behind the subject. So I'm going to use a plugin called Smooth Shadow that just adds layered shadows to an element. And that just adds a bit of separation between the subject and the background. Finally, we have the call to action, right? We have this one, contact Jane Smith for a tour, and the phone number. So just to save up a bit of time, let's copy this bit, paste it here, and let's copy this bit, and paste them in. We're going to set the content there to, or the direction to vertical. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's make the text inside fill the container. And let's do this. We'll set 40 pixel gap. We'll set 48 pixels left and right, and we'll set 80 pixels top and bottom padding. In terms of the text, this will be using Rubik. A regular will use 49 pixels, 120% line height. And for this, for color, we'll use Amber 900. And we'll make the phone number much bigger. That's also Rubik, or Open Sans, bold, 61 pixels, 120%, and for fill, also Amber 900. And we're not going to say phone here because it's pretty self-explanatory that this is a phone number. Let's align this with the guide on the left side, and let's extend it like so, because I want to put this behind the image. And that means we need to resize this text element. Let's align everything to the left until everything looks like this. Let's align this to the middle of the page. And our fourth slide is now complete. So this is what we created in this lesson. A property showcase story, Instagram story template where we have 4 slides. The first one showing a title and a big picture of the property. The second and third showing various features of the property. In my case, I'm showing the interior and the exterior, the backyard basically. And the final slide just gives us another look at the property and information about the realtor so we can get in touch. And the first 3 slides also contain, of course, the logo of the real estate company, but also some visual cues to inform users that there's more to the story that can be discovered. All right then, second template done. So now it's time to create the third one, which is the most complex of all 3. So let's create an Instagram carousel post. And if you're not familiar, an Instagram carousel post is basically a series of images or videos. And I'm going to show you one of the examples that I really like. It's from one of my favorite designers, Abby Connick. And she's doing a fantastic job with these carousel posts. She's basically presenting information across multiple slides, but she makes them look as if they are part of one big image, and you're just swiping right or left to see various portions of that image. And she's using some great visual cues. For example, the arrow that you see here on the pizza box, pointing to the right, letting people know that, hey, swipe right, there is, more information to be found if you do that. And she's doing the same here. But also some of these images are, some of the elements are kind of being cut off, but then they pick back up on the next slide. So she is placing elements, in between slides. And that's a great technique for this kind of design project. And that's exactly what we'll try and do for our project, which is a carousel post for the real estate company. So let me show you what we have so far. As far as I know, a carousel post can have 10 slides max. We're gonna create ours with 6 slides. And this carousel is basically about tips for finding your perfect home. So we have 4 tips plus the intro and outro slides. That makes for 6 slides. And each one of these slides has basically the tip, an image, some bullet points with information, and here I said swipe for more. These are going to be used as visual cues to let users know that, hey, swipe right, so you can find out more information. The first slide, it has a title that describes what the post is about. And of course, it has an image. And the last slide is basically a call to action. Are you ready to find your perfect home? Contact us. Here's how you do that. Phone number and email address. And of course, just like we did previously, we need to use the same style that we did for the Instagram story and the Facebook post templates to make sure we maintain consistency. Now, one thing to mention here, each one of these slides is 1080 by 1080. And because I am creating 6 of them, I just made one big frame that's 1080 in height and then 6 times 1080 in width. So inside it, I basically have 6 1080 by 1080 squares. And I've created guides. Top and bottom, we have 64 pixels gap. Left to right, we have also 64 pixels. And this one here ends at each 1080 division. So we have 1080 here, 2160, and so on and so forth. Also, the assets that we're going to be using are as follows. We have these 4 images, all taken from Envato. You can find the links in the video description. And these 4 icons that are from the Bootstrap free icon set. Let's start with the first slide, and we'll just copy the text, the title. We'll copy the swipe for more text here. And let's bring in the first image. Okay, let's resize that a little bit. Okay, great. I'm going to be alternating between a lighter background and a darker background in some of these slides. And I don't want to use just pure white. Let's use the Indigo 50. So a very light variation of our primary color. For this first slide, let's move this out of the way for now. I want to use that pattern that we have available. So let's paste that in. Let's bring up the scale tool. Let's scale this down to something like this. And for the color, because we used Indigo 50 as the background, let's use Indigo, let's say 100. So I just want it to be very, very subtle. So with that selected, let's lock it down so we don't, select it by accident. And let's also push it to the bottom of all the other elements. Next up, we're going to use the same angled shapes that we used in the other templates. So let's go back to the brand assets. Let's grab this shape. Let's paste it in here. Let's make it bigger, like so. And we're actually going to overlap some of the elements so they span multiple slides, or 2 slides in our case. So I'm going to take this image and I'm going to show just a part of it on the next slide. And by the way, if you're looking at these 3 guidelines, the middle one represents the boundary of the slide. The other ones represent 64 pixels from the edge of that slide. So here I'm just going to push this kind of outside. Let's duplicate that. Let's bring in the image like so. Select all 3, group them up, select the first vector, use as mask, select the second one, add a stroke, 32 pixels, and for the stroke color, we'll use the same Indigo 200 that we used previously. Okay, and we can work on the image a bit more, maybe have that something like this. Okay, and maybe scale this down a little bit so we have some room left right here, and also some room left for the title. Okay, great. Now let's see about this this title here. And because we want to keep consistency between these posts, let's use this element here as the title. Okay, and the title, we'll just copy the text here and we'll paste it here. And we'll make this a little bit smaller, 61 pixels. Center aligned, 120 pixels, rubric bold. And the containing box, let's actually make this 48 to add a bit more breathing room. Okay, so let's align that with the guide. We also need to place the company logo here, and I just realized that this image doesn't fill up the entire space there. So let's adjust that really quickly. And we need to place the logo in here. Let's use another one of these shapes like this one, to match our logo. So I can place this right here, and I can make this slightly bigger and bring it under everything else, maybe bring it down, and we'll set the fill to charcoal 500. And on top of this, let's add the logo. So we'll go to assets and we'll grab the one that fits on a darker background, which is this one here. K, to bring up the scale tool, let's make this 120 in height. So now let's take this, align it with the guides. And from here, we can tweak things a little bit, maybe, have the image and this come in a little bit. All right, so that looks pretty good. And with that, our first slide is done. Let's move on to the second one. So the second one, it has a title, an image, and I just added a description of the image here that would work. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need to use an image that shows exactly this. It's more of a guideline, basically. And we need a way to display a bullet list with this information. Oh, I actually forgot. There is a swipe for more text around here somewhere. There it is. So that needs to be placed over everything else. And we need to add that visual cue, that arrow right, telling users, hey, you need to swipe right. So we're going to use our secondary typeface, open sans, regular. Let's use 25 pixels, 140%. And we'll use charcoal 500 as a text color. Shift A to add it to an auto layout frame. And we'll set the lateral padding to 32 pixels, vertical one to 16 pixels. And for fill, we'll use charcoal 50. Again, because of consistency. If you remember, in the post template, we used the same colors right here. Now, let's round this off. Round off the corners, we'll use 16 pixels to match the roundness of this element. And let's add that arrow right. And I'm going to make this icon 40 pixels in size and make sure all the elements are aligned to the middle. And let's set the gap between them to 12 pixels. And the color of the arrow should be charcoal 500. Now I'm going to place this, I'm going to align it to the bottom guide and also to the guide on the right side. So this is where my slides finishes. So I'm going to align it with this guide that's 64 pixels from the edge. Now, let's move on to the second slide. So we have this text and we have these tips. So let's paste them here. And let's make things a bit more interesting. We'll grab the tip text and we're going to separate it. And we're going to use the shadows into light typeface, 119 pixels in font size. And we'll do about 120% line height. And we'll use the indigo 500 color. Next up, title. This one is going to be Rubik. It's going to be bold, 49 pixels, 120% line height, and charcoal 500. What about these? Well, let's first change the typography settings. So open sans, regular, 31 pixels, 140% here, and charcoal 500. But I want to separate these. Separate them into individual text elements because I want to make a list, okay? So let's grab the check icon. We're going to make this 48 pixels in size. Let's bring it in here. Change the color to charcoal 500. And then we'll take these two, Shift A, make a horizontal layout, align everything to the middle, and set 32 pixels as the gap. Let's do this 2 more times, like that. And now we select all of these, Shift A to add them to their own auto layout frame, 32 pixels set in between. And now I'll take all 3, Shift A, make sure they are aligned to the left and also to the middle, because I'm going to extend this to the top and to the bottom. And I'm going to set 80 pixel distance in between them. Now I'm going to make this slightly smaller, and I want to make sure that all of these elements are set to fill container. So this is set to fill. These are set to fill, but the text elements themselves need to be set to fill container as well. Okay, so this one as well, and this one as well. So now, because I did this, it's much easier for whoever is editing this template to not worry about spacing or alignment, because I can easily just add another item here, and the layout will adjust itself accordingly. Now I'm going to select this and I'm going to set a 96 pixel distance between the entire container and the image on the left. Now I'm also going to place an image on the right side, and I want that image to also span 2 slides. Again, just for consistency and to make the layout a bit more interesting. So let's go back to the brand assets and let's select one of these shapes. Let's paste it in here. Let's Shift H and Shift V to flip it around. Let's align it to the top and let's resize it to about this much. And maybe even more. I can push this to the right and resize it even more. So something like this. Let me bring in the image that I'm going to use. I'm going to group these two up. I'm going to use a mask again. Then just, resize the image so we can see the pen right here. And this will tie in nicely with the text. In our wireframe, we saw the following description, a checklist with a pen. But after browsing the images, I found that this picture would work much better because it shows, a real person writing something down. And again, that pairs really well with the text on the left side. Now I just need to resize this bit so that I leave some gap between this text and this image. And I'm going to use the same 96 pixel gap that I've used previously, like so. And finally, let's duplicate this visual aid, but let's change the color scheme a little bit. So I'm going to use charcoal 500 for the fill color, and for the text, I'll be using charcoal 50. And let's make it a bit more simple and just say swipe, because, people already understand that, hey, you can swipe for more information. Great stuff. So that's slide number 2. Let's move on to slide number 3. For that, let's change things up a little bit to keep things interesting. Let's create a shape, and it's gonna fill up the entire 3rd slide, like so. I'm gonna use the 500, the charcoal 500 fill, and let's bring in these 2 elements. So duplicate, bring them over, select this first one. I'm gonna change the indigo to the amber, and I'm gonna change the charcoal 500 to charcoal 50. And again, select this, make sure it's at 96 pixels from the image to maintain consistent spacing. And I can resize this and bring it until it meets the guide there. The swipe action, I can bring in and align with the guide like that. And again, we need to swap the colors here a little bit. And actually, let's bring this up in the layer list so it's easier for us to select things. Charcoal 500. And let's change the contents here. So we have tip 2. It's going to be this text here, research the market. And we'll also paste the other text like so. Okay, so that's the 3rd slide done. Let's move on to number 4. So for this, let's duplicate this element. Let's bring it over here. Let's align it with the guides there. So that's going to be tip 3. And just like we did previously, we're going to paste in the text. Okay, we can also bring in the swipe button. And let's put it in its place right here. Now here we could use a cool image that speaks to maybe something like this, a pre-approval letter and a house model. That's just an idea basically, but I'm thinking a couple talking to someone at the bank, maybe, where they're signing some documents would work just fine. So I found this image here on Envato, and this is the one that we're going to use. So bring that over. Let's just make it slightly smaller. And again, let's add some visual interest. Let's overlap some items with one another, but also between slides. So let's go back to our brand assets. Let's grab one of these shapes, paste it in here. Okay, let's Shift V. Let's place it at the very top. And let's scale it so it goes all the way down to the end of the slide. Now let's position it something like this. Let's use the amber color. And now let's duplicate it. Let's Shift V. Let's use a different kind of color here so we can see what's up. And let's Shift H to, flip it horizontally. And let's make that smaller. I'm thinking something like this could work just fine. So now let's bring the image over. Okay, let's select these two, group them up. Let's use the vector as a mask. And now we'll just place the image so that we can see both people in the image. And then, of course, we will get the swipe button to sit on top of everything else. Okay. And one other thing that I want to do here is just to bold some of these words, like, for example, must-haves, budget, growth. It just makes things easier to scan for the user. This one, we're going to bold, trends, compare prices, open houses. So, we're just emphasizing the key elements in that text. In here, we're going to highlight pre-approval, faster, serious buyer. And then let's, make this slightly bigger. So we have the same 96 pixel gap between the items. So now let's duplicate. Let's create the content for tip number 4. Let's make sure this uses the same spacing. And then let's replace the content here, something like that. And let's bring in the swipe button and let's place it right there. And then finally, let's create the content for the final slide, which is basically a call to action. We have this title, an image that I also want to place between the two slides, and then the contact information, basically. And let's not forget about the company logo. Let's use an element that we've used previously, like this image that's masked out. Okay, let's bring that over right here. And let's align it like so. Let's change the image to this one. And I want to change the direction of the image. I want the person, the subject, to look to the right. Okay, so I'm going to grab the image and I'm Shift H to flip it horizontally. So now I can position this so I can see the subject's face and I can see where she's looking and I can see the keys, right? This is very important because the title says ready to find your perfect home. So we used this person, looking at keys that presumably are going to open a new home. Behind this, let's create a shape that's going to serve as a background for the slide. Let's use charcoal 500 and let's place it under the image like so. Let's also bring in one of these shapes, this one for instance. And let's just paste it right here. And, we're just going to make this slightly bigger because I want yet another angle in there, something like this, just to make the whole composition a bit more interesting. And I'm also going to place this under the image. Let's use the primary color, 500. Let's place the logo right here at the bottom. So I'll get my assets and I'm going to get this logo, and I'm going to bring in the scale tool and resize it to 120 in height. And I'm going to align it with the guides there at the bottom. And finally here, we're going to place our contact information. So we're going to select this and this and this and this. Copy that, paste it here. So let's change the typography for these. This, Rubik, bold 61, uppercase, and we'll do the indigo 50. And let's resize it like so. And let's not forget 120 line height. These other three elements will all be using Open Sans, same indigo 50 color. This one here is going to be bold, 31 pixels, 140%. Let's resize this as well. Here, I'm not going to say phone or email because we'll use some icons. So let's double click these elements to hug contents. And let's bring in the other two icons. That's going to be a telephone and the envelope. Let's make these 40 pixels in height. So that's the envelope going there. That's the telephone going there. Select Shift A, align to the middle, 24 pixel gap in between. Make sure the same lavender 50 color is being used. Do the same here. Now select this, this, and this, Shift A, use 24 pixels as gap between them. And now I'm going to select these two, Shift A, I'm going to use 80 pixel gap in between. I just want to make sure the gap here is set correctly to 96 pixels. And I'm going to shrink this to align it with the guide. And let's set a top distance here of about 120 pixels. All right. So this is what we have so far. We have slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, 4, 5, and 6, created in one continuous image. Now, you're probably wondering why I did it in such a way. Why did I create a component out of this? And how are we getting this on Instagram? So 3 separate questions. So let me answer those. I made it into one continuous image because it's much easier to work with. 2, I created a component because I want to chop this up in 6 individual slides. And 3, how are we getting this to Instagram? Well, let me show you. What you do is you create a frame that's 1080 by 1080, right? That's the exact size of one of the slides, okay? And you call this Insta Carousel Slide 1. You grab the component that we just created, you copy it, and you paste it in the image, in the new frame, and you align it to the left and to the top. And that shows you just the first slide. You then duplicate this and you move this instance of the main image to the left by 1080 pixels. So on the X, you say minus 1080. So that shows you just the contents of slide 2. Slide 3, you select this and you subtract another 1080 pixels. Slide 4, select this, minus 1080. Slide 5, select this, minus 1080. And finally, slide 6, select the instance, minus 1080. So what you have now are 6 frames that you can select and export as a PNG, as a JPEG. And those frames look like this. So now you can take these and upload them to Instagram and create the carousel post. Now, once we upload these to Instagram and we create a carousel post, it looks something like this. And you can see because we overlapped images and elements in between slides, we constantly get those visual cues that, hey, there's something else there that we can see if we swipe to the right. And of course, we get that seamless swiping experience. We get the idea that this is one seamless image that we can see in its entirety if we just swipe right or left. Pretty cool, right? Now, let's have a look at a few key takeaways from this course. Figma is a great tool for designing social media templates. It's free, cross-platform, it's very easy to learn, and has plenty of useful tools, including AI-assisted ones. When designing social media templates, you should use these key design principles: consistency, white space, hierarchy, and accessibility. Social media platforms have different size requirements for the images you post. Make sure you use the correct one. When designing carousel posts, use visual cues to inform users they can swipe right to reveal more information. As always, don't forget to check out the Envato Tuts Plus YouTube channel for more content like this, but also to learn about web design, web development, and much more. It's all free, so make sure to also hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. I'm Adi, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, take care.